All right.
I
live.
absolutely love it. I love that.
That one was a little bit tough to come up with because there's.
Yeah, you know what? It's like on the fly doing these things, especially because we're in like the last. Should we do this? Are we going to do this? And you and I were talking about it last night. It was like, yeah, let's just do the video again like we did last year. And then it's like, well, let's rip this together real quick. Let's put an intro together. So, but I think it looks good. I like when you do these little intros. It's like game show style shit.
You know what's funny though is I use this like kind of like public domain music for a lot of these. Like on our podcast, the music is actually a band I was once in. So
Yep.
that one I had. But like if you use like all this public domain stuff, I'm running out of weird funk music to grab from these sites. Because like we used up a lot of good funk when we were doing the morning shows
Yeah.
before the playoffs.
You might have to re-rack those, man. You might have
I
to
know.
just try them again.
I think it's been enough time, like a whole month, that people have forgot the hot track that was underneath there. So
Yeah.
I think I could reuse some.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to talk about real quick is speaking of live videos and live performance. So we have two huge events coming up. So next month we're going to do Festivus, and we're already getting some guests lined up for that, which I'm very excited about. So we'll be announcing those probably in December. And then 108 Day. So 108 Day is going to be live at Reggie's.
Yep.
And so in doing this, we put out the tickets already to buy. I don't think they're going to last that long based on the response that we're getting.
Right.
So if you haven't gotten tickets yet, you should go out and get those tickets today. The links are up all over the place. It's our pinned tweet. You can find it very easily. So go make sure you get those tickets today. And then we're going to talk about something that we do every year, which is trades with every team in the league.
Yes.
So we started this last year, and this is just going to be something that we keep on doing. Beef, I'll let you kind of give the background on it and what we were trying to do with this series of blogs.
Yeah, so I mean, you and I specifically, I think, the 108 blog in general, sometimes we'll look at a certain way in which other blogs, other online publications do content in a certain time of year, and you look at it, it's like it's all the same shit. Everyone's retreading the same three free agents we're all thirsting over. Everyone's looking at the two same trade potential situations. And we get bored of that stuff. It's not really even like we're trying to like think outside the box necessarily. We just get bored of it, and we're like, okay, let's make something different, and let's really do an exercise that we might get something out of. And so for you and I, we spawned it last year, the trade with every team concept. The Sox would make a trade with every single team in the major leagues, and you and I would switch off. So when we started, we don't have a set like, you're taking these teams, I'm taking those teams. We set up the divisions, and it's like first come, first serve. Get into the WordPress files, and whoever gets there first and has a good idea, boom, there it goes. And I think at least, from my perspective, it helps me realize the needs of the other teams that the either Sox are competing with, or they might be trade partners with for real life, at the deadline or even in the off season. So I think as a thought experiment, it works well for us just to make sure we're still plugged in with all the baseball stuff. When we get done with the season, it's a long season. We're at the ballpark a lot. There's a lot of Goose Island beer going through us. As we've been doing with the 108 weight loss, you're trying to get your shit back together after the season. You're exhausted. And for us, this is another way we get our minds back towards, okay, what's 2022? What's this next season going to look like? I know about it. What do you think, Treasy?
So, yeah, I agree. It makes me readjust myself to the other rosters too.
Mm-hmm.
And you forget, because like I can't keep track of all the guys that are leaving a team or all the options that aren't picked up or any of those things, right? And so going through this, it helps you even think about free agency, right? Because you start to look at teams and go like, oh, they have no players left. They're but they have lots of money, so they're a player in free agency, and they need and you start to see which teams need which positions a lot too. So
Yep.
it definitely gets your mind back on like how hard is it going to be to sign some of these guys that we really want to sign, or
Right.
how
Right.
how
Yeah.
or how long are we maybe going to wait on some players and some positions because there's a plethora of guys out there and no teams need these,
Right.
right? And
Yes.
so that's it. And another thing you touched on was how we set this up, which is I basically put the template up of each division with the 5 teams or the 4 in the case of the AL Central.
Right.
Um, and the agreement that me and Beef have on this is that you have to do at least 2. One of us has to do at least 2 of them.
In each
Sh
division, right? We got to
Yeah,
do so. It's a mixture. Every blog is a mixture of you and I. It's not one of us dominating a particular division. We gotta switch off.
and Beef writes a lot faster than I do. He like,
I do.
I I have to take, 3 or 4 showers while I'm thinking about this to, like, put something down on paper, and, and that's I mean, that's months, as you guys know, that it would take for me to have 3 or 4 showers. So so I kept getting into a blog and seeing this asshole left me the worst teams. And not like the worst teams as in these teams are bad, the
No, just
worst
the
teams
hardest.
as this is impossible to trade with this team. And so we'll start there. Beef for you, who was the toughest team to make a trade with?
We talked about this a little bit, and I had specifically messaged you about this team because I was like, I'm not sure what to do here. Do you have any ideas? And I think you didn't really have many ideas either, and that was the Washington Nationals. And the Nationals are in a super weird spot because they had sort of a half-assed team last year that they traded kind of all the remnants, anything that was kind of a leftover piece, something with a short-term contract. They traded them and got rid of those motherfuckers. And now what they got left is they've got a huge superstar in Juan Soto, and they have 2 pitchers who no one's contracts they'd want to pick up in Steven Strasburg and Patrick Corbin. Behind that, they have a bunch of youngish talent that's right there, kind of on the cusp. So you don't know if the Nationals are like, I don't think they're going to go into a rebuild. So it's not like, and the stuff that they could dump you in the rebuild, you not necessarily want or can afford. And also it's like you can't really ship them anything for a prospect because they're using all of them. They're real thin, and then all those guys are right up at the top. So it's very tough to trade with the Nationals, my personal thing.
Yeah, I took a look at it and I was like, what are you gonna I mean, like, you gonna try and trade for Juan Soto? Like the White Sox, you'd have to give the whole farm system up, and the Nationals would just be kind of like, I don't know. Why would I do that?
Right, and
Um,
that's the other thing you have to take into that's a good point that you bring that up, Treasy. Another thing you have to take into context when you're doing these trades is, in theory, another team, especially for a big superstar, would offer more. So you can't just say, "Oh, what is the best possible offer we could give?" And then
right.
that's the trade. If it's like Juan Soto, the Sox don't have a Juan Soto trade basically because some
Yeah.
other team would usurp that and they'd win it. So it's tough to do.
The Tigers could do it. The Tigers could do it, those jerks. Um, so Beef for me, the
Yeah,
toughest because I did the Nationals
you
trade.
did
So
the Nationals
obviously
one.
that was the toughest one.
Yeah,
But the what made that one a little bit easier is that that the Nationals have a lot of money. And
right.
that maybe you don't know this, but you have to have 26 players on your roster to start the season.
Allegedly,
So
allegedly.
I felt like they might just be willing to go, yeah, we'll take the Keuchel contract for a year. We're going to let him pitch 159 and 2/3 innings, and that'll be it. Um,
Right, right,
and that, but if they're taking the whole contract and they don't have any contracts to give away, like to give
right,
back,
right.
I just was like, well, they'll give us nothing. They'll give us the empty envelope from True Romance.
Yes.
Here's my offer.
Michael
The
Michael
Michael
Corleone's
Corleone.
offer. Yeah,
My
exactly.
offer is nothing.
Nothing.
So I was like, well, I got to write something in here. So I put international bonus slot money, which I have no
That's it.
idea how that's going to work next year. So it's possible
Right.
that doesn't even exist.
Right. Exactly. It could be a draft, so it doesn't fucking matter at all. Who knows?
So yeah, I was like, that was a very tough one. The other really tough one, Beef, for
Yeah.
me was the Rangers
Okay.
because there's no one on the Rangers roster that is making much money at all.
No.
And everyone has options. Everyone has minor league options on it. Like the whole team. There's like one guy that doesn't have minor league options on their team. And so you're looking at it and you're like, why would they get rid of
Right.
any of these
There's
these
no
guys
reason to
that are
dump those
worth
guys.
something,
Yeah.
right? Like Kiner Falefa,
Yeah.
like he's a guy that you could be like, okay, well he could play a million positions and
Yeah.
he's good.
He's going to
I
get
would
an
trade for
extension.
him. But why would they do it?
They're
Like
not going to do it. Exactly.
it's and then you're like, okay, well maybe they want to dump money, but you don't
Yeah.
even know that they want to do that. They have money,
They have money. Yeah. I think they're
right?
going to
Like
spend
so
money in the offseason, right? I mean, that's kind
right,
of the
that's
rumor.
what we're hearing now.
Yeah.
And see, this is what makes it tough to trade with a team, and the Rangers are a good example. You don't know what they're trying to do.
Right.
Like you have no idea what they're looking to do in the coming season. And
Right.
so when you don't know that, it's tough to go in and go like, okay, well, they probably want to get this kind of player and they want to get rid of these things,
Right.
right? And so I went and got someone who was hurt from them
Right.
and
Exactly.
thinking, okay, well, we've got enough bullpen arms to start the season.
Right.
And when look, I think it's Leclerc that I got
Yeah.
in the
Yep.
trade. I was like, when he comes back, there will surely be someone who has been injured or is
Yeah.
underperforming or something, and he takes that spot. It's still not like I made the trade and it was like, this is still like, why am I giving this guy $5 million? Like it just it still is like
Well, and
I,
that was one of the few trades where Mick Rodolfo's in there. And it was
yeah,
one of the few where it could possibly make sense. So what people don't understand about the Mick Rodolfo situation is he's out of options. So a team trading for him would have to think they could use him on the major league roster right now. That might be a one weird spot. Like you mentioned, they have the roster filled with guys with options. They could take that gamble for a half season or something,
right.
figure out if it works. If it doesn't work, well, that's it. You're free of that, and you've got some kind of weak low end outfielders that have options you could bring up in the spot. So it's kind of a weird spot. Like most teams wouldn't be willing to do anything for a Mick Rodolfo, but $5 million in salary relief, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I
No?
mean that's kind of how I took that one.
Yeah,
And I agree. Like the ability to to just throw him out there and just see what happens.
yep,
Because otherwise, if they keep Leclerc, he's going to pitch a portion of the season for them. If they're
right,
not going for it, or if they're not in a position to even try, like it's a weird guy to have on the roster.
right.
Um, but like I said, it was tough because I don't know what they're going to do. Now,
Yeah,
on the side of the easiest teams to trade with, I think the easiest one for me
yeah,
was the A's. And I think it's because we have some kind of view into what they want to do, right? Like they
right.
seem to be, and buying land in Las Vegas adds to this. Beef. I don't want to take the words out of your mouth, but we were
Yeah,
talking about it. We were sitting around having some drinks with Slim Mick and Josh Nelson last night,
yep.
and
By the fire pit was
by the
nice.
fire pit outside. We're
Outside.
outside. Of course, we're outside because it's beautiful out.
That's right.
It's a and we're sitting around, and Josh was talking about, this is look what the A's are doing. We are all kind of like, yeah, we've been kind of tracking this, and it's the thing. And you said it's Rachel Phelps in Major League. It's
Go
it's
to
just
the bottom,
absolutely the
baby.
same thing. Just go to the bottom, and then go to Vegas instead of going to Florida or wherever they were going in
That's
the
right.
and like and so that was probably one of the easier teams for me to trade with because one thing about these trades, and you probably saw it in a lot of the trades that I made, and Beef, you were messing with me about this,
Yeah.
but like the Sox don't have like a ton of high end prospects. So
No.
if you're going to try and get like a starting pitcher or something like that, the way that I was trying to make that happen was by saying, I'm going to take, a bad contract back with this trade,
Right.
and see how we can make that work. And so in that case, I took Elvis Andrews, and Elvis Andrews' contract is so bad that
Horrendous.
it made it easy for me to go like, well, yeah, a lot of these things would make sense if we were willing to say Elvis Andrews is going to be our replacement for Lurie Garcia.
Right.
And once you have that in place, it's like there's a lot of guys you could go after on the A's, right? And
Oh
there's
yeah.
and there's a lot of guys that are kind of like coming towards the end of their either RBers or contracts, and like so like Chris Bassett and Sean Manaea are two of them. And I think Bassett is probably the one that people are most interested in.
Right.
I feel weird putting him back on that mound. So I
Yeah,
just
it
didn't
is
do it.
kinda
Like I
yeah,
was and not even
interesting
trying to
call.
be funny about this because
Right,
it's not funny at all what happened to him, but like mentally, like, is this the mound he wants to be on like
right,
most of the season?
right,
Like
it's
it's just
bizarre.
like it's weird. So I was like, I'm not gonna do the Bassett trade. I went
Right.
to Mania. So I went with Mania and Frankie Montas is on this team too. And like so there's
Right,
a lot of guys that you could look at and go like, okay, I think I could make something work with this. They're trying to kind of bottom out their roster anyways.
yeah.
Like this could make sense. This is an easy team to trade with. So that was the easiest one for me. Beef, who was easy for you?
Before I get to whoever's easy for me, I agree with you on the A's. I put them because I put two choices for each of these just in case we had the same thing. Yeah, the A's not only because of all the points you just mentioned, but because Billy Beane is willing to trade anyone at any time if he sees he's got value. So you can really look at that roster, and we're trying to do this with every roster. And I think the modern GM is a little more reticent to if you're both in the compete mode that you would trade someone from your current roster across. It's got like high, PR risk. It's got like the court of public opinion risk there. Whereas like normally, if you're trading different timelines, you got more of a gestation period there for people to forget about if you made a really bad. I mean, they're never going to forget about Tatis Jr., but smaller trades they'll forget about, right? But if something's happening right when both teams are in contention, it's GMs aren't always willing to do that. I think Han though and Billy Beane are both. I mean, Billy Beane's not the GM; he's the president of baseball. He's the overlord there. But they're willing to do that shit. I think they're both the type of GM who they don't care. They're like, we'll just
Yeah.
swap right now. So the A's for sure was up there. For me though, I think the easiest team to trade with, and I made a bombshell of a trade with this team. I could have done something completely different because I think it fits the White Sox or his trade partner extremely well. Is the Miami Marlins. And the reason why the Marlins are is because they have a plethora of young pitching. Everyone needs pitching, and the Marlins have absolutely no hitting whatsoever. So it's easy to take a young hitter from your roster or any age hitter, basically. I took a little older hitter from our roster, put them on the Marlins. It's an immediate upgrade, monster upgrade for them. And then you get some of the young pitching back, which absolutely every team can use. There's not a single team that isn't looking for more pitching, and the Marlins are the ones who have it. They're like they have the whole cauldron of young pitchers. So I'm interested to see. I don't think the Sox will necessarily make a trade with them, but I'm interested to see what they do in the offseason to turn some of the young pitching into like an actual real team. Because there's no reason they can't compete in that NL East. I mean, that NL East is not that strong. And we mentioned that the Nationals aren't quite there. The Mets have fallen off. The Phillies have been riding at 500. I mean, it's just not that tough of a division. You got one good team, stalwart, the World Series champs, but the rest of them, fuck them. So start flipping shit and turn yourself into a real team.
It is weird to go like with a division that has just recently produced 2 World Series champions,
Right.
and you're like, that division is anybody's. Like the Braves
Exactly.
just won the World Series, and you're like, anyone can win that division.
That's right. That's how it feels.
I mean, I agree. I agree. It definitely feels like that. And it's funny, Beef. You brought up the Marlins as the easy team to trade with, and we're going to talk
Yeah.
about the most interesting trade the other guy made.
Yeah.
And man, I've got to say that the most interesting trade that you made, and it showed in the reaction that people had to it,
Yeah.
was the Jose Abreu trade to the
Yeah.
Marlins.
Yep.
And so I looked at it and I was like, this what you wrote made sense. But the one thing that you just mentioned a moment ago was the GM and like their need to kind of have a good appeal in the public and like people be behind them.
Right.
And like this would just like if they actually did this trade, right?
Yeah.
Like let's say they made this trade tomorrow.
Yep.
People would rip Rick Hahn to shreds.
Yes. 100%.
But I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about since, we're bloggers and we can just write whatever we want. So
Exactly.
we could put something like this out there.
Yeah.
And like I remember a few years back you traded and this was in the Sox machine off-season
Off-season
plan.
Yeah.
You traded Luis Robert.
I did. Yeah.
And obviously people can look back at that and just destroy you.
Yes.
This
As they do. Yeah.
This one can go really either way, right? Like in very opposite directions. Like
Right.
if if Jose Abreu were to go out and have another MVP year, this looks insane. But if Jose Abreu regresses a little bit,
Yeah.
because he's definitely he's getting older, you
Yeah.
know,
He's gonna play
and
the season at 35.
and he got hit 450 times last
Yeah,
year.
that's right.
He's he never takes a day off.
No.
Like this is a guy that like at some point I don't want to be around for it, but at some point he's going to start to regress a little bit and break down.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if that were to happen this year, you could point to this and be like, "I told you, should have sent him to the Marlins."
we could have got out of here. We could have got out of this thing.
But what I really liked about it, and what's interesting to me about it is you don't often think about trading guys from the major league roster, main players on the major league roster when you're contending.
Yeah. Right.
But sometimes it could make sense.
Right.
In this case, I don't think it does. Terrible trade, asshole. But but it
Yeah. You
you
can
know,
put it as
it's
one of
but
my
it's
worst trades as well.
it's something to think about. It's something to think about, like, who are the guys on the roster that are tradable?
Right.
And what could you get for them? And I have to agree with you. I think Abreu's one of the few guys that's very tradable. The one guy that I tried to work into a deal and just never was able to find one that worked out was Grandal. I think you could trade
Yeah.
Grandal for sure.
Yeah, I was trying to do that too. The
But
problem is you have nothing behind it. Like the reason
yes,
why an Abreu trade could work in theory is you do have Andrew Vaughn and Gavin Sheets, so you've got sort of the talent built up in that spot, and that's what makes it like a little more palatable to trade a player on your major league roster when you have the young talent coming through that plays the same spot that could like maybe they can't give you 100% of that performance, but they give you 85% of the guy's performance, and then you get
plus the
something
new guy.
yeah,
Plus the new
plus
guy.
the new
Because
guy adds to a spot where you're hurt, you know?
you'd basically platoon Sheets and Vaughn at first base, right?
Yeah, and one of them pick up, DH or right field reps, whatever. You'd get more usage out of those guys, and granted, they'd have to actually hit. They'd have to actually
Yes.
become what they're supposed to become. Like you don't just throw away, and even the down Jose Abreu years are damn fucking good years. Like you're not just tossing one of the best players in franchise history for. These guys got to make it. Like that's the key to this.
Yeah, being 80%, like two guys combining to be 80% of Jose Abreu
Yeah.
is still very difficult.
Still very difficult. Yeah, that's absolutely right.
All right, so I don't know that I had any interesting trades
I
in
think you had a
terms
bunch
of,
of them actually.
but I will let you
Yeah.
tell me which one you were most interested in.
It's kind of funny. I think you had a lot of interesting trades, and you're right. I did kind of stick you with teams that I thought were harder because I was working a little faster than you were, and you were getting in there. But I think you had really the most thoughtful trades in this series. Like I had some that were a little more bombshell type things or trading actual players from the roster. I feel like you had more trades that could really happen. Like, oh, I might actually see this trade occur in this offseason. And one that I really liked was the trade with the Pirates. We traded for Jacob Stallings. And I think you had this in your Sox Machine offseason plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it. I like this kind of trade because if you're a White Sox fan and you're thinking about this window, this competitive window, we here at 108 are like the first version of the competitive window ends after the 2023 season because that's when a bunch of these guys roll off. If you're the type of White Sox fan that's thinking this window is as long as Luis Robert is here, what you've got to start doing is flipping out parts that become guys who are helpful in 24, 25, or even that 2023 season and start getting them now and getting them in-house. And Jacob Stallings is exactly that type of player. He'd be your backup catcher on this team with Yasmani Grandal, and he'd probably pick up a few extra days to get Grandal off his feet a little more often than, so he's as fresh as possible for the playoffs. And then as Grandal rolls off after 2023, he's your starting catcher. And you got an in-house guy. If you look at the farm system of the White Sox, it's pretty barren. I mean, we have guys who have the catcher position name on them, but none of those guys are going to start for a contending team. Let's be honest with ourselves, right? In fact, some of these guys don't belong on a contending team's roster at all. So, you got to start preparing for when that's going to happen because you can't just expect you're going to spend another $18 million a year on the hottest catcher on the market again. That's not going to happen. Like either one, that guy's not going to exist or be available, or two, you're going to have the financial constraints. You can't do it. So like they got to start looking. To me, I like that trade because it starts looking like the way I think Rick Hahn's going to look at this roster kind of starting this year and probably in next offseason as well is, all right, we got to start turning this, because if we want to stay ahead of the Tigers, and as the Tigers start getting better, we need to start moving towards younger players. We start moving towards the future and insulating this roster a little bit that doesn't quite have the depth. I mean, last year we didn't have the depth. He went out and got people off the scrap heap, and that's fine, and it helped and it worked. But you can't always count on that. We got to start insulating in the 40-man roster. So I kind of like the foresight of that deal right there.
So the last thing we're going to touch on is the worst trade the other guy made. And I think I know what mine is. So
okay.
I'll go first, and
Okay.
I'll tell you which one that I did not like from you, and
Okay.
it was the trade with the Cubs for Cody Hoare.
Yes.
I mean, you're just trying to get your bit back.
Oh,
You're just trying to get
Yeah.
your little bit back.
Yeah,
Like
yep.
you don't care about him as a pitcher. You're still probably mad that he unfollowed you on Twitter.
I am.
Like
I'm upset
there's
about this. Yeah.
like this is totally bit based. You're not even trying to make the team better. You're trying to get likes on Twitter.
Yeah.
You're trying to
That's
get
what
likes
I
on
do.
Twitter. And that so I was disappointed. But what was funny was I looked at it and I was like, this could happen.
I think it was probably a little light on the return back because, like or don't like Cody Hoyer, he is kind of a proven reliever in the major league so far. He may be a mediocre one with some upside, but he is a guy you could pencil into a roster, and you're going to, okay, that guy's one of your 7 or 8 relievers. Whereas I was just flipping back 2 guys who might become relievers. And yeah, I mean, God forbid I go for likes. That's how we sell T-shirts and tickets to these shows, Treasy. All right, so you and MSS can both kiss my ass. How's that sound, huh?
See, I wasn't even gonna put
MSS
this
in
up,
the comments, right?
but
It's
I'm putting
in
it
the
up
comments.
because you you wanted to take a shot back. You want to take a shot back because you're being defensive
No, you
over your
guys
trade.
deserve it. No, I made a lot of bad trades in here, and there's about 6 or 7 you could have taken there. And I don't mind you doing the Cubs one, because yes, I was going for my bid. I would have been upset if you would have taken the Tigers one, because I thought that was a funny the cannon, the T-shirt cannon.
I like the Tigers one. I like the Tigers one, and then for the same reason we were talking about, like with trading Grandal is tough because you don't got anything behind it. There's so much behind
the pizza. Yeah, exactly. We got infinite pizza, right?
We got infinite Chicago pizza. Like we're good.
Even just in the neighborhood, we got infinite pizza depth.
Yeah.
There's no concerns whatsoever.
It's tough to get to all the pizza.
It's tough to get to all the pizza.
So we're not what we are short on, very short on.
Yeah.
Is mobile T-shirt cannons.
Yeah, I mean we have none.
We have zero. We have zero.
Oversight.
We've been playing without that position. I don't even know how you do it. It's basically the coach from Hoosiers going, my team's on the court.
Yes. Exactly. Coach Norman Dale. They Coach Norman Dale the T-shirt gun. Like, what the fuck? Do you think part of the reason is, do you think at some point it was Brooks had it written into the budget, we're gonna get the driving roving T-shirt cannon thing, and that the Sodfather nixed it because Sodfather's got seniority. He doesn't want to drive on his field. I bet you that might be part of it.
I don't know.
Another strike against the Sodfather. I might have to rewrite my blog about how he's losing it. I'm not sure.
Maybe they're worried about hitting Freddie Garcia with the car.
That happens. Too drinky.
All right. Beef, hammer it down, man. What's the worst trade that I made?
So I'll preface this with saying I thought you made the best trades in this thing. Maybe not the most controversial, but the best trades, solid trades, things I think could happen. However, this trade was a load of crap. The trade with the Yankees, where you traded for DJ LeMahieu, and it had a few things going wrong here that were just way off base. One, you had the Yankees dumping salary, which they would never ever do, not in the Brian Cashman era. They don't need to. I mean, it's just not. They've stayed disciplined. So they're not flying way above the thing like the Red Sox are. They're not going way above the luxury tax. They've kind of kept their shit tight. And he's good at getting value plays as well. So I don't think they're not going to trade him for one. And two, we don't flip them back hardly anything of use. And the one thing we do send them back of use on the current roster is Gavin Sheets. And they've already got like the Gary Sanchez's and Luke Voigts and Giancarlo Stantons of the world that probably should be DHs instead of fielding a position. So it's hard to even get Sheets out there to use him. Like they kind of need a center fielder, basically. It's kind of what they like. Adam Engel going to them. Like we traded Adam Engel a few times. They could use Adam Engel, right? They could, because Aaron Hicks is never healthy, something like that. So That one I thought just didn't make any sense from the Yankees' perspective. I don't think they would take.
That was a tough one. The Yankees were tough to see who they would actually give away,
I
right?
agree.
Like who would they trade? The Sheets thing, though, I mean, like I think they've soured on a lot of these guys, which is why I put them in there. Like, because
Right.
I didn't feel like we had a strong candidate for them.
No.
I think Engel could have been a good one, to fill kind of the Brett Gardner role and be that guy.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like definitely a tough one to trade with.
It is a tough one, actually. And, I think that the spot where you could trade with the Yankees, because they would be top 5 toughest, in my opinion. You either got to trade a big guy for a big guy, like you
Yeah.
trade them Dylan Cease and get something back, or you trade them Giolito and get something back. Oh, you can't trade Giolito because Rick Giolito will come in here and firebomb us
That's
on
true.
the Twitter. So I don't want to take that heat. All right.
I didn't even look at his name on the roster. I was like, nah,
I did not either.
Papa G will fuck me up if
That's right.
if I move Gio.
We don't need that heat. We don't need that smoke. Or you look at kind of their overflow, because they always got overflow 40-man stuff. So you can kind of pluck off something if you're willing to give them an okay something or other. You can pluck off some extra 40-man arms or something like that. But yeah, it's kind of a tough team to trade with as well because where they're at, and they kind of have someone for most spots, and the spots where they want to upgrade, they're going to get a real player for those spots.
Right. Well, that's the problem. Is like if they need something, they're just going to go pay for it.
Right. Yeah.
And so like that's why I kind of went with the, you know, LeMahieu's got what I wouldn't consider a good contract right now.
Yeah.
So it's like there's like 5 and 75 left until he's like 50 years old or something. And like, and so if they were bringing in Correa, which this is pre Derek Jeter sucks comments from Correa. So
Yeah.
I was like, the Yankees are going to get this guy. And I was like, maybe the Yankees aren't going to get this guy.
Probably not.
So So I was kind of thinking, okay, well, they're going to spend a lot of money on the infield. They might want to get rid of some of the money that they have in the infield.
Yeah.
Agreed. Maybe this works better with you swap out Sheets and Yolbert for like Jose Rodriguez and Adam Engel.
Yeah.
But then I don't want DJ LeMahieu for that.
Truth be told, I don't think you really even wanted DJ LeMahieu anyway. So that's what makes the trade even better, or even worse, I should say.
What was funny was I was like doing it, and I was like, "We're gonna put LeMahieu at second base." When's the last time he played second base?
You're like, I have no idea. That would get ugly too, especially if he was like, because he's tall too. He's like 6'4". If he's looking real slow at second or whatever, man, the Sox fans would give him a beating. Be trouble.
So Alex brought up that Gallo, and they don't like Gallo. So I definitely that was one of the guys I was looking at, and I didn't see a way to make that work. So I found plenty of ways to make that work. To be honest,
yeah,
I didn't feel like any of them were like something that the Yankees would be like, yes, let's do this.
Okay, yeah.
Because we just, you're offering kind of the same thing for Gallo. Like we have stuff like that, but we have a worse version of it.
We have the high strikeout guy that's like, not as good as that guy.
Why?
The great
why would
in right field?
Yeah, why would they do this?
Yeah,
right. And so like that was the one. Again, the Yankees are a tough team to trade with because they're good.
Yeah,
they're a good team, and they got a lot of money.
Yeah.
So like there's not a lot to do there. But yeah, I like the Gallo idea. In fact, if they did trade for Gallo, I would be bullish on that trade, even though he hit like 112 or something for the Yankees down the stretch. Well, all right, man. I think that's almost it. Did you want to talk a little bit about kind of what you feel like you learned from this exercise?
Yeah, let's do a little lessons learned real quick. I mean, we were talking a little bit about this we were sitting by the fireplace last night. There's players on this roster, good players on the White Sox roster, where it's tough to find a trade for them. And specifically, we were talking about Tim Anderson and Yoel Moncada. It's not that they're not good players. It's just when you look at the fits that they could be on other teams, it's tough because, especially with Anderson, I'll use him as the example. Anderson is, probably a top 10 shortstop in baseball. But the real contending teams either have a high-paid shortstop or a quality shortstop that's not high-paid yet, but is one of those guys. They have the money and resources to go out and get one of these free agent shortstops that exist. Or they're a team that's just kind of bringing up a guy who they want to become that shortstop. So it's tough, and you can't really dump a Tim Anderson to a bad team. Like, what are they going to do with Tim Anderson hitting 320 on their bad team? Like, okay,
Right.
maybe he wins a batting title for you, but that doesn't move the needle on anything, right? And why would they want to give up shit that you do? So someone like Tim Anderson, where he's kind of a good player, not a great player, and not it's something that teams need, but they kind of everyone is building their team to make sure that they've got that position or that they have cash to buy that position when it's time for them to be a contender. So I think it was tough to trade like a Tim Anderson. Oh my god.
Yeah, I think I agree. Like trying to do trades off the roster just seemed very, very difficult. I mean, like obviously, if you wanted to trade like Luis Robert, tons of teams would be like, yeah, let's take him.
Yeah.
Um, the the thing that I was like noticing quite a bit was when you start to look at like, okay, if you have a team, I'll take the A's as an example.
Okay.
When we were trading with them, my thought was, this is a team that's kinda gutting things right now, but they wanna turn it around quickly,
Yep.
right? They don't wanna do, like, a full rebuild, they would wanna, like, be back in a year or 2,
Right.
right? And so, you wanna trade guys that are close to the major leagues,
Hmm.
right? It's not like you're trading with the Rockies, and the Rockies, you don't know if they're ever gonna compete again, so you go, like, here's some, 16-year-olds we picked up in the international draft, you know? So, like, the the guys that are, like, pushing up from AAA into the majors
Yeah.
don't exist. There's no one pushing a player out of a position,
Right.
which is a bad spot to be in, to
It is.
be completely honest.
It's kind of, yeah.
Um, but that was something that I noticed. I was like, there's not like a guy that you're like, he's almost there. There's some good prospects
Yeah.
in the system, right? Uh, I'm not, like, trashing the system. It's not a great system
I'll
for
trash him.
sure.
It's not a very good one, but you're
But
right. There are some players who you're like, oh, okay, but they're not like on the cusp of the roster. And it's
there's
like it's not like you got a good shortstop at AAA, but Tim Anderson's your guy. So what are you going to do?
there's nothing
It's an
like that.
obvious
There's
trade asset.
like
You know?
the closest thing you have to that is like a Jake Berger,
Mhm.
where he's not pushing anybody off the roster.
Right.
You're just not quite shitting your pants if you have to play him, right? Like if he
Yeah.
comes up, but like you look at the pitchers that are like the AAA guys. When you look at this pitching staff and you go, well, what happens if Michael Kopech is injured, or or if Dallas Keuchel just falls apart completely at this point.
Yeah.
Like, who's that next guy? And like, there's not that guy doesn't really exist. You're gonna put someone up there, and you're
Right.
gonna like hope that this works out. There's not a guy that you're like looking at and going like, this guy's a solid guy.
Yeah.
And even like when I did the Diamondbacks trade, the guy I was really trying to trade for, but I wanted to have like a big ridiculous trade. The guy that I was first looking at was Merrill Kelly,
Yeah.
because Merrill Kelly is a guy who's kind of like back of the rotation. He's not very expensive. He's way too old to be in like the middle of his arb years, because of the time that he spent in Korea. And so like a guy like that, you want a guy like that on your
Yeah.
roster, like in AAA or something like that, and go like, if he comes up, I know what he is. He's about a
Yeah.
4 ERA guy, and he's fine.
That's usable, man. That's very
I,
usable.
the
Yeah.
Padres could have used 50 of those guys this year.
Exactly. Absolutely.
But, like, I just don't see those. I don't see those in our
Yeah.
our system. You also don't see, like, a highly coveted prospect. Like,
Yeah.
Jose Rodriguez coming out of nowhere was extremely helpful to this process,
Yes.
because I got
Absolutely
to
was.
insert him into, like, 20 trades, and people would be like, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
but yeah, there's like, it's not good. It's,
No.
like, we talked with Sleepy Harold this week, and I just feel the idea of like, we need to go out in the international market and just sign 100 guys, because you've got to try and hit a couple to build this farm system up.
You're right. I mean, they need what the White Sox need, and I wrote this a couple years ago. Their biggest need is they need some of these teenagers or 20-year-olds or whatever to take a big step forward in the 2022 minor league season and become at least trade assets. Become at least something someone would say, "Oh, I would take a shot at that player to give you this player that you need for your contention window." Like, they just don't have enough of that right now. They need some of those young players, and young players are the current trade currency They need a couple guys to step up and become those players. And they've got a bushel of them, man. They've got all the young pitchers that they drafted, high school age pitchers, and they just need 1, 2, 3 of them guys to pop up this year, even if they never become anything as major leaguers, just so we have something we could trade.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Beef. I've wasted 40 minutes of your day.
Yeah.
And
I love it. I love
it
it.
was a lot of fun to talk about this. I'll
Yeah.
put this up in a blog, and I'll link to. I think in the comments of this, there's already links to the blogs. If you haven't read them, go give them a
Yeah.
read. It was a lot of fun to do, and I can't. Well, actually, I can wait till next year for this. So I gotta get to watch a whole season in between there. Hopefully, a whole season. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for everyone in the comments. A lot of fun today. Talk to you guys soon.
Take care.